Alright fellas, we just witnessed Edgar Berlanga go head-to-head with Hamzah Sheeraz on the monumental Ring 3 card, a night that delivered fireworks from start to finish, and we absolutely have to break down all the action and fallout, not just from that main event, but from the entire slate of bouts that made this one of the most quietly stacked boxing events of the year. Now, first off, in the lead up to this fight, Berlanga was as vocal and brash as ever, talking trash, not just to Sheeraz, but even throwing jabs at Oscar de la Hoya and anyone else within shouting distance, which made the anticipation even more intense. But the real question was, could he actually back up all the noise once the bell rang? And as it turns out, the answer was a resounding no, because when these two finally stepped into the ring, it was clear from early on that Sheeraz's height, reach, and precision were going to be a serious problem for Berlanga, who just couldn't get anything meaningful going after the first couple of feel-out rounds. By the fourth, Sheeraz was fully dialed in and caught Berlanga with a crisp combo that sent him crashing to the canvas. Berlanga got up smirking, banging his gloves together like he was unfazed, but moments later he got dropped again, and if it weren't for the bell, we likely would have seen a third knockdown right there, and honestly, the fight should have probably been stopped then. But instead, the fifth round began, and it only took 17 seconds for Sheeraz to put an exclamation point on it, blasting Berlanga with a clean left hook followed by a monster right hand that ended it in dramatic fashion, the ref waving it off with Berlanga flat on the canvas, giving Sheeraz a statement win and a rocket boost into title contention, while Berlanga now finds himself in a very tough spot, likely several years away from another world title shot, especially with the belts tied up by Canelo. And his status as a legitimate top-tier fighter is in serious question, as many have pointed to his rise being manufactured through favorable matchmaking, a kind of top-rank protection program that built his image with highlight real knockouts against low-risk opponents. But when the real tests come, like against Sheeraz, it's clear that there's still a lot missing in his arsenal, and although he's a solid boxer, he seems far too one-dimensional at the elite level. But that being said, there's one fight that actually makes a ton of sense next for him: Berlanga versus Caleb Plant, both guys coming off high-profile losses, both known for talking the talk. And it would be a redemption bout with strong appeal and marketability for both men, whereas for Sheeraz, the sky is truly the limit now, especially with talk already swirling about him being next in line for a shot at Canelo, provided Canelo gets past Terence Crawford in their blockbuster showdown. And from what's been hinted at by promoters and insiders, Sheeraz seems to be the foul runner over someone like Chris Eubank Jr., whose best days might already be behind him, and considering Canelo's for-fight deal with the Saudis with only 2 fights remaining, matching him with Sheeraz makes total sense commercially and stylistically, especially since the Saudis seem intent on building Sheeraz into a major star for their growing combat sports scene. But if Canelo loses to Crawford and an immediate rematch is triggered, then Sheeraz might be left waiting or forced to take on another top-tier opponent in the meantime. Now shifting to the co-feature, we had Shocker Stevenson facing Jose Zepeda and putting on what was arguably one of his more fan-friendly performances to date, as he chose to fight flat-footed, standing in the pocket and trading more than usual rather than dancing around on the back foot. And although he got clipped in round 3, his overall IQ and defensive instincts carried him to a fairly easy unanimous decision win, showing once again that when his hands are healthy, he can essentially dictate any style of fight he wants. But what's next for Shocker is tricky, because the lightweight division is logjammed with inavailable or inactive fighters, and his one obvious super fight, Gervonta Davis, is currently tangled in legal issues, meaning that bout is on ice indefinitely. And while we'd all love to see Shocker face Abdullah Mason or Floyd Schofield, Mason is tied up with a fight in November and Schofield is locked into a Golden Boy contract, which could complicate negotiations given the bad blood between Oscar de la Hoya and the powers behind Ring 3. So realistically, Shocker might need to sit tight for a while or take a tune-up before a more meaningful fight can be arranged. And speaking of meaningful fights, we also saw Alberto Puello face Subriel Masches in a barn burner that had fans on the edge of their seats from start to finish. Both fighters gave it everything, and while Masches walked away with the decision, Puello has a rematch clause in place, which may throw a wrench into plans for Masches to face Dalton Smith later this year on the Ring 4 card. And then we had David Morrell picking up another solid win in a competitive matchup that showcased why He's one of the most exciting and avoided fighters in his weight class. And lastly, we can't forget the electric Katie Taylor vs. Chantel Cameron trilogy finale from the Sarr vs. Taylor card on the women's side, a card that once again proved just how high-level and compelling women's boxing can be, with Taylor showing her class and earning a deserved decision victory, solidifying her place among the greatest female boxers of all time. And special shout out to Australia's very own Trineka Johnson, who delivered an eye-opening performance that deserves a lot more shine than it's been getting. So, all in all, this weekend was an absolute feast for boxing fans, filled with high drama, career-defining moments, and shakeups across multiple divisions. And now the questions loom. What do you make of Sheeraz's emergence as a serious threat at the top of the division? How do you feel about Shocker's development into a more aggressive style? And where do Berlanga and all the rest go from here? It's a fascinating time in the sport, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, predictions, and takes in the comments below. And of course, if you enjoyed this recap and want to stay updated on everything happening in the world of boxing, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll be right here breaking it all down for you fight after fight. Thanks for watching, fellas, and I'll catch you in the next one.